I was the eldest of 5 with a single mom from about the time I was 8 years old. Being the eldest and how things went, I knew how to balance a checkbook by the time I was 10 years old. We were very poor, so it was rough, but we made it. My mom's biggest hope was that she wanted to keep all 5 of her children together, and she worked very hard at that. Grew to an appreciation of not having any money and started earning my own at a very early age. Little things like I either had to buy my own clothes or make them, and I did that starting in my late junior high school.
My boss at the startup had to really talk me into it. He walked me around the pond behind our complex, and we had a long conversation. I just didn't like Apple. I didn't want to work for them. But Steve Jobs had come back not too much time before that. And so I thought, well, we'll give it a shot. So I agreed to come over. And they gave me a $10,000 sign-on bonus. And I had a bunch of shares. They gave me a couple thousand shares sign-on bonus. So yeah, I decided to give it a shot, but I love the position I ended up in. I love the work that I was doing. At one time, I even told my coworkers that I love my job so much that I'd pay them to let me do it. It was that much fun. At the point where we retired, we had 11 $10,000 CDs, and one was maturing every 3 months. And right about that time, the financial crisis of 08, 09 hit, and our nest egg went from 1.51, our portfolio, 1.51 down to 864,000 at the end of February 09. We sold the house, we were on the road living in a motorhome, and we had $864,000 to our name.
Welcome to Catching Up to Fi, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to Fi together.
Hey, Jackie, guess what? It's Plutus Awards season, but our audience won't know what the Plutus Awards are. What are they?
Yay, woohoo! We are excited that we are in the running for several different categories for the Plutus Awards. And the Plutus Awards basically is given important recognition to independent content creators in the financial space. It's been around for 10 plus years at least, right? I can't exactly remember how long, but anytime I saw that a content creator won a Plutus Award, that was a big deal. And it demonstrated that they were great in what they were doing in terms of the financial space as an independent creator.
Yeah, I mean, this would mean the world to us if you would consider going on to the website plutus.awardsplatform.com. That's plutus.awardsplatform, one word, .com. We're up for about 7 categories, Jackie, and one we're really proud of is the best new personal finance content creator audio. Now, we started 2 years ago. We've had over 1 million downloads, but we're still allowed, because of a miss last year, to be up for this new content creator award. It would mean the world to us if you would consider voting in this category.
Yeah. And like you said, even though it's been 2 years, we're still considered new. We've got podcasts that's been out there for 10 plus years, and they've gotten really good at it. So we're proud to be still considered being in the best new personal finance content. Now, also, we've got several other categories, and one of those is Content Creator of the Year audio. So this is another great one that we believe we're deserving of it. And if you think that we deserve that and you want to do a little give back, we would love it if you would nominate us for that category as well.
Yeah, and there's People Choice Awards as well, and we're up for the one for audio.
Yeah, and then we've got the Plutus Storyteller Award. Bill, you know, we have some great storytelling on this show that are from the voice of late starters. And then you and I have shared our own story, as well as Becky. So the Storyteller Award definitely spoke to me, so I wanted to make sure. I was so glad to have us on the list for that as well.
Yeah, I mean, your stories are a pivotal part of the show. We late starters are here together to learn from each other, and your stories are critical to get out there to the financial independence community. Another category that we're up for is best traditional retirement content. You know, we do give hardcore information. It isn't all softcore. We are also hardcore.
Yeah, not only that, Bill, but a lot of us that are getting a late start maybe a little bit older, where we are planning for traditional retirement. We all want to reach financial independence, but when it comes to the retirement piece, perhaps we are in those traditional retirement ages. So we talk about things like Social Security. We've had something about Medicare. We've had a lot of CFPs and other financial professionals that are talking about even the traditional part of it. So this was a great category to be a part of as well. Another one is one that's close to my heart, is best personal finance content for women. Our audience is 70+% women, and we have a lot of shows dedicated to that. We just recently had Carrie Carbonaro. I did a Women in Taxes webinar that I cross-pollinated to our platform, but speaking to women is a big part of our show and what we like to bring in.
Yeah, and lastly, in these categories, we're up for best personal finance content for underserved communities. We feel that the late starters are an underserved community. We are probably the only voice in the podcast world out there speaking to you, the catching up to fires, the late starters. This is a new thing for us, and we hope that you feel that you're being served.
Yeah, and if you think that, please support us in this way. We don't ask for much, and we certainly appreciate you tuning in every single Sunday and occasionally on Wednesdays. And if you think it's worthy of other people finding the show, please take the time to do it. I think there's a quick little registration, but you can get through it in 5 minutes. So if we could have 5 minutes of your time to do that, we would be so grateful. And you know, Bill, I also have the book Fire for Dummies and a little bit of my own platform. So I'm in the running as well for a few things, not competing with Catching Up to Five, but one of my favorite. So if you want to support me as well, I'm under the best new personal finance content creator written for Fire for Dummies. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah, also the best new personal finance book. And we all think that's the case. Fire for Dummies for life.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And I've shared a lot of the content from the book on the show, of course, but also I'm in the running for best financial advisor content. I am a CFP professional, so I got into that category. And then there's something called the Plutus Resilience Award. And I'm not sure if this is a new category or not, but this definitely spoke to me. I've openly shared my story to, get it out there, and hopefully it impacts other people or inspires other people by sharing my mistakes and things like that and how I bounce back. So resilience is a very important term for me, term of endearment, really. And then the last one, Bill, is best financial independence retire early content for Fire for Dummies. I literally wrote the book on financial independence and retire early. So that's the last one that I'm in. So for both Catching Up to Five and my book, we would love for you to take a minute and vote for these. Again, it's at plutus.awardsplatform.com. It has a quick little registration. You can be done in 5 minutes.
Yeah, you'll see this link in our newsletter. You'll see it in our show notes. And we just hope you feel as we do that we put out some stuff that is worth listening to. Hello, and welcome back to Catching Up to Five. Jackie, we're back from vacation. It was just the 4th of July. We're recording this on July 9th. I went to D.C. and I hung out in a nursing home with my wife's aunt and uncle and learned all about what it was like to age beyond 80. It was interesting, and I learned how I didn't want to age into my 80s and how I did. And we spent the second half of our vacation with the esteemed Uncle Frank Vasquez and his wife, Mary. I got to sit in the easy chair from which he records his podcast, Risk Parity Radio. He even let me read the letter questions on the show. I was the first voice other than his wife's or his on the show. I feel so honored. What a great vacation. How was yours, Jackie?
It was great. You got to send me a copy of that episode because I'd love to hear it. And Frank, I know he's your buddy and he is a friend of the show. I also did a lot of traveling. All of my family is in the Southeast. So between South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. So had a great 4th of July, saw a lot of fireworks, ate a lot of watermelon. But we are back at it and we got such a treat, right?
Oh, yeah. We have a late starter story for you today. We love our experts. We love our influencers. We love our fire people, but we especially love other late starters when they tell us their stories about how they overcame a late start. Jackie, we're here with J.C. Webber and his wife, Bev. Why don't you introduce them?
Yeah, and I would say I want to start calling him the daddy of late starter stories, okay? J.C. Webber started his early career in the military and then was a bartender before landing a job in big tech at Apple. He retired from Apple at the end of January 2008, and he hit the road with his wife, Beverly, a few months later and never looked back. We'll find out during our conversation with him today how he weathered the financial crisis in 2008 and managed to not let it derail his plans. So he was a late starter and did his very first net worth statement on the back of a 3x5 card when he was 51 years old, and that was December 2001. At that point, he had a whopping $120,000 in investments. Now, 6 years later, just 6 years later, he and his wife grew their net worth to $1.8 million. So he's an honest guy. If you're doing the math, though, JC reached early retirement at age 57 after just getting started at 51. So, Bill, there's still hope. So he turned it around, and it's so impressive. And so much of his story resonated with me, including divorce. His rise is inspiring and it's a great example for other late starters. I'm also very jealous of all of the Apple stock that he owns because I do a little bit of individual stocks myself. So he now travels the country in his RV and visits places around, and he is just living his best life along with his wife, Beverly.
We sold the RV 2 years ago. We now own 2 houses.
Well, you got to tell us about that too. Man, we got some juicy stuff to get into, right, Bill? So JC is meticulous in tracking his numbers and is very transparent in sharing with us today. So he'll be sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly. So JC and Beverly, welcome to Catching Up to 5.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I mean, we listened to you on Millionaires Unveiled, but this, if I'm not mistaken, is your second podcast. And we love having new podcasters with us because those are stories that haven't been told to our community. Those are stories that aren't out there in the greater 5 bubble. You may find yourselves on many other podcasts after this one, which is great because people need to hear those inspiring stories about the fact that, you know what, we recovered from our shame, remorse, regret, and anger. We got to work and we made this happen to a retirement, just like Jackie did. From 38 to 49, she retired early when she woke up. From 51 to 57, you guys retired early after a late wake up. I'm still working. What's wrong with me?
Yeah, you saved enough money to be comfortable enough to retire.
Yeah. He says it all the time, and he is the only working stiff around here. So we've got so much that we're going to talk about. So why don't we wind it back? And we want to hear a little bit about the early years. Now, actually, we want to hear from both of you because we know that might have been a different experience. So why don't we start with Beverly? So Beverly, tell us a little bit about growing up and some of your early money memories and kind of how you felt about money growing up. So let's start there.
I was the eldest of 5 with a single mom from about the time I was 8 years old. Being the eldest and how things went, I knew how to balance a checkbook by the time I was 10 years old. We were very poor, so it was rough, but we made it. My mom's biggest hope was that she wanted to keep all 5 of her children together, and she worked very hard at that. Grew to an appreciation of not having any money and started earning my own at a very early age. Little things like I either had to buy my own clothes or make them, and I did that starting in my late junior high school and on. Anyway, things move along. I got married early, a high school kind of marriage thing.
Now, that wasn't with JC, was it? That was somebody else?
JC is actually my 3rd and my 4th husband.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit more about how that happened.
So it was a high school marriage and that kind of thing, and he wanted to move on. Then moving forward, I always worked. I started working when I was still in high school and had quite a career with the auto and home glass industry. I think my next big thing, I was working still at a glass shop. I applied for a job at Hewlett Packard. Totally changed my world. It was an awesome move. It was nice to have money and feel comfortable. I was still single for the most part at this point. I was still married, sort of, to the first guy, but he rarely spent any time at home because he was with his girlfriend all the time.
That's not good. So now I understand how that one ended. Okay.
Were you a saver? I mean, you got to the bigger paycheck with Hewlett Packard. Did you always learn to be a saver, or was that a challenge?
Oh, no, it was not a challenge. I was a saver because unless I saved, I couldn't have whatever I wanted. It was exciting the first time I got my own credit card. Oh, there's all those little things come into play. At one point, I bought a house. Now, this is where JC does.
We were dating at the time.
We were dating at the time.
Living together. Yeah, we bought the house together, but she had to sign all the paperwork. I had no line of credit or anything, or a pot to piss in either, pee in.
How did you guys meet each other?
Oh, that's an interesting story. Can I tell that one?
Quickly.
Yeah. I hung out in neighborhood bars playing pool as my spare time relaxation. And one night she showed up with a neighbor that she shared a duplex with. And the neighbor was a young girl whose parents owned the house. And they told Bev to please look out after her. So the girl wanted to go out and party, and Bev didn't want her to go by herself, so she tagged along to keep an eye on her. So they showed up in my bar. So I was shooting pool, and I was a bit of a shark back then. I played pool with one hand, and I won tournaments and trophies and stuff. So I think she was slightly impressed with my pool game, but she spent some time talking with me. And she told me recently that young girl knew me and introduced us. I didn't remember that. But I had a date later on that evening down the road at another bar with that bartenderess. So I left to go to my date, and I was down there 20 minutes, and there was a knock on the door, and the doors were all locked because it was after hours. So I went and opened the door, and there she was standing with my cue stick. I forgot to bring it with me.
Well, so the serendipitous stuff, the chemistry was there. So it sounds like Bev had her own financial life before she met you. Did you have problems with debt? Did you manage to accumulate assets? What was it like moving into the larger dollar job? Did you save in a 401k? What were your habits at that point?
Yes, definitely 401k and 10% of my salary. Also, on top of that is what I saved. I'm so glad that I did that because gave me the ability to buy the house and also the ability to build some credit because it was kind of weird.
As an unmarried woman back then, it was tough to get credit.
It was still hard, and you had to have money. I was still very surprised that I was able to pull off buying that house on my own, if you will. Yeah.
The funny thing, Beverly, is that you said that you had to put the house in your name because JC's credit was jacked up. Is that right?
He just lived from paycheck to paycheck, barely.
She made more money than I did.
Oh, yeah. He was working at these oddball kind of things, and I encouraged him, why don't you go for a bigger place? And that's how he wound up at Apple.
So you both in California at this time?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm hearing all these tech companies and startups and things like that.
They were all California.
So you meet JC and then you guys get together, and we'll talk a little bit more about the marriage. JC, tell us a little bit about your money stories growing up and kind of the habits that you formed and your experience.
So I think I'll start after high school, going into the service. It was April of my 18th year. I had my birthday on November 11th, Veterans Day, which allowed me to never work or go to school on my birthday my entire life. This is a national holiday. So I had a couple of traffic accidents and totaled my little Volkswagen Bug. But the next car I totaled was my dad's. So he was not a happy camper. He could have a violent temper, and I ended up with a black eye after that traffic accident in his car. So I decided to leave home. So I joined the Air Force the day after I got out of the hospital and shipped off during Vietnam. And I don't know why I didn't realize that there was a war going on. I was oblivious to that. And it wasn't until I was in basic training that I realized they might send me to Vietnam. But I studied hard in tech school and got good grades. And so I was able to pick my assignment and pick my career. So I became a medical hospital admin clerk, filing medical records and arranging for medical evacuations. And then the war was winding down. And so after 3 years and 9 months, I got a 3-month early discharge from the Air Force because they were lower in the head count. I became an inactive reservist for 3 years and 9 months. And I banged around the country looking for different jobs. Couldn't really find anything decent. So I went down to the recruiter's office to see if I could get back into the service. And the Air Force said, no, we've had enough of you. So I went to the Naval recruiter's office and they took me in. They knocked me down 1 grade. I was an E4, but they brought me back down to an E3 and brought me in. And so then I spent a year on the ship, and then I went to tech school, and then I learned electronics. I have another program with the Navy that if you were accepted at a local college, you could get out 3 months early to attend this first semester that was starting. I signed up for junior college, got another early out after 3 years and 9 months, aced my college experience. I got a 3.95 grade point average out of 4. And was a member of the California Honor Society. And all the classes I took, I got A's in everything except one history class. And I was explaining this to my dad one time. I said, well, I only got 1 B. And he thought that I meant that was my best grade because I was a horrible high school student. So he said, well, at least you got a B. I said, no, Dad, that was my worst grade. I got all A's. He was blown away that I did that.
Well, congratulations on that. And also thank you for your service. So you served in the first one, did you say the Air Force and then the Navy? Yes. Thank you so much for your service. And it sounds like, did the military pay for your schooling? So you had no debt. You didn't have to pay yourself.
I was on the GI Bill. It was so cheap back then. It was like $65 a credit or something goofy. It was peanuts to go to school.
So now that's completely different. You got out of school. You had wonderful grades. At what point did you get your job at Apple and meet Beverly?
I had a lot of tech jobs, mostly startups. And then the startup I was with, I think it was my third one, Apple was purchasing it. And my boss wanted me to come with, but he didn't want anybody else on the team to come. So it was him and me that joined Apple together when they bought that little startup. And that was in October of 1999. It was right before the Y2K. It was my responsibility to make sure all the electronic programs were up to date, not fail once the clock turned 2000. And so I had records from all the companies that we were doing business with, certifying their software. They'd upgrade it and then certify it. So when 2000 came around, nothing happened to us.
I had to do all that also.
Oh, she did it for HP.
For Hewlett Packard, because I worked for the accounts receivable department for the internal accounting system, not external companies or anything. So anyway, I went through a very similar thing.
So I went back in the service because I couldn't make a decent job. Between Air Force and Navy, I learned to be a bartender. And so I tended bar in New York, Michigan, Wisconsin, Illinois, California, and Florida. During that 3 years and 9 months I was out of the service. So I bounced all over around the country, hitchhiking or riding a little motorcycle. I had a little 350 Honda. I went from California to Florida on. And I don't know where I came up with money to do all this because I wasn't really paying much attention. I would pay all my bills when I got my check, and then I would live on what was left.
Did you ever have a debt problem?
Yeah, I think I had maybe $15,000 or $20,000 in credit card debt besides the vehicles. I had a truck, a motorcycle, a second on the house, and a first mortgage on the house. This was after we were married and divorced. And so my brother-in-law is a tax attorney guy, and so he did my taxes every year. And he saw the situation I was in, and he offered to bail me out. So he gave me the money to pay off all the credit cards, and I paid him off over time, interest-free, just gave him money every month until I squared with him. And then that was the time when I started learning about investing, and I tried to be a stock picker. I invested in like 30 different companies. I put in around 65,000. And when I learned about index funds, I sold off all those losers, and I pulled out about 32,000 out of the 65 I put in.
So when you were the stock picker, were you working at Apple at that time, or was this before the Apple days?
This had to be during the Apple days.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was during the Apple days. I was making 130,000 a year, and I was spending 70. So I was looking for places to put all this extra money in. So I tried picking stocks.
So were you contributing to your 401k?
Yeah, I was maxing that out.
Okay, awesome. So you did have some money in your index funds through your 401k.
Right. And the employee stock purchase plan, I participated in that too.
Did they give you like a 15% discount on Apple stock?
Exactly, right. And there was a vesting period, but I don't remember much about that. It's too long ago now. But yeah, at one point I had 10,000 shares of Apple.
Wow. Yeah, that's why I said I was jealous. Now, I wasn't a stock picker like that. Okay. I'm a long-term investor that actually does research and stuff. But Apple has been the stock that I have held the longest. I never worked for the company or anything, but I do have Apple stock. So the $130,000 that you made, so was that the peak?
No, last year I made 136. But if you go on to the Social Security website, they have a record of all your earnings. And surprisingly, I made over 600,000 the year I was quitting in 2017 because I cashed in all my shares that had vested.
Do you ever regret that decision? Do you wish you would have held on to them?
Mathematically, I guess, yeah. But no, I put all that money in a brokerage account, and really that's where we're living off is the brokerage account. I have about 460,000 in the rollover IRA. I'm down to 16,000 in my Roth. But I've got 1.3 million in the brokerage account. That's what I did with that money.
Okay, so let me get the salary right. So as far as your straight up salary, the highest you made was around 130, but there was 1 year, 136, but there was 1 year where you were cashing in that Apple stock, and that gets counted as part of your income that is subject to Social Security. And for anyone else that's listening, if you want to check your Social Security earnings history, and it's kind of interesting to look at these, isn't it? Yeah, you just go to ssa.gov and we'll put that in the show notes. And so you retired in 2008. The highest you made was 136. So I adjusted that for inflation. And in today's dollars, that is about $200,000. How long did you make this good salary? How long were you at Apple before you retired?
Well, they brought me on board for somewhere between 80 and 90,000, I believe. I was there 10 years. You ever heard the Peter Principle?
Explain that to me.
You do a good job, you get hired. After you get hired, you do a good job, you get a raise and you get a promotion. And so they keep promoting you until you reach a level where you're no good at it.
That's his philosophy.
That's a Peter Principle. So they promoted me to be the head of our department, and I hated the job. I wanted to solve people's problems with their computers instead of managing the 8 or 10 people in our group. So I asked if I could give the job back.
All right. So I need to know, too, you're in the sort of the era of Apple where people want to know, what was it like working for them, for these innovators back in the late 1999s and into the early 2000s? What was that like? What kind of environment was that like?
My boss at the startup had to really talk me into it. He walked me around the pond behind our complex, and we had a long conversation. I just didn't like Apple. I didn't want to work for them. But Steve Jobs had come back not too much time before that. And so I thought, well, we'll give it a shot. So I agreed to come over. And they gave me a $10,000 sign-on bonus. And I had a bunch of shares. They gave me a couple thousand shares sign-on bonus. So, yeah, I decided to give it a shot. But I love the position I ended up in. I love the work that I was doing. At one time, I even told my coworkers that I love my job so much that I'd pay them to let me do it. It was that much fun.
That's a superpower right there, to love your job and that you would do it even if you didn't get paid.
But after 10 years, the industry was moving on with new languages, computer programming languages, new tools and stuff. And I was real good at what I knew, but I wasn't adding to my skill set very much. And the kids that we were hiring, I call them kids, they were in their 30s and 40s. They were outshining me with their expertise in the new stuff. So I could see the handwriting on the wall that it wasn't going to be long, that I wasn't going to be the technical lead anymore of the department. So when I saw how much money I had accumulated, I decided to put in my papers and quit. I was going to quit in December 07, but I ended up in the hospital with my 6th abdominal surgery for benign mesothelioma tumors. And that took me out of the work for 6 weeks, and I had promised my boss a transition period. So I had to continue working when I got out of the hospital for another 2 or 3 weeks in January of 08 to bring somebody on board to take my place.
You're a numbers guy. Let's dig into it for a little bit, because people need to be inspired about the rapidity with which you reach this point where, you know what, I have enough money. I'm getting sort of a little bit of ageism coming on where new people are coming in and I may not have a job. I need to pre-plan for this. In 2001, you made your first net worth statement and you wrote it down basically on the back of a napkin or on a note card. I find it fascinating to see this because the bottom line was your net worth at that time was only $250,000. And your investable assets, the stuff you can live off of, was only $120,000 at that time. Bev, does that include your finances as well? You guys were married at the time, and this was the...
No, that was just me.
Just you. Okay, that was the individual net worth statement. In the next 6 years, somehow you got to investable assets of 1.5 million. So from 120,000 to 1.5 million, you've got to tell us that story.
Well, the turning point, that's a better word for it. The turning point was my brother-in-law loaning me the money to get out of credit card debt. And then all of a sudden I had more money than I knew what to do with, and I had to start learning what to do with it. And so I increased the 401k contribution to the max, and I was putting some money in the IRA. And I didn't know about Roth back then. So I had an advisor at Wells Fargo who sold me a bunch of crap. Illiquid REITs, for example, was one. It took me forever. Every month I would have to put in a request to sell all of it, and they would sell 10% of it, 15% of it, whatever, because they didn't have the cash to buy me out of all of it. So it took years to get out of that particular one. But I have to admit, though, he did recommend a laddered CD structure, which I put in $10,000, I think, every quarter. And we started off with 3 months, then 6 months, then 9-month CDs, and then annual CDs. So at the point where we retired, we had 11 $10,000 CDs, and one was maturing every 3 months. And right about that time, the financial crisis of 08, 09 hit, and our nest egg went from 1.51, our portfolio, 1.51 down to 864,000 at the end of February 09. We sold the house. We were on the road living in a motorhome, and we had $864,000 to our name.
How did that feel? I mean, you managed to accumulate this huge nest egg with a high savings rate and I presume aggressive investing tactics going from 120 to 1.5. That in itself in 6 years is incredible. But then right as you get to that point, you exit the building. Elvis has left the Apple building, moves into a motorhome with his wife, Bev, and watches his portfolio get cut in half. You survived the great financial crisis. What did that feel like, though? I mean, did it scare the shit out of you?
I was surprisingly not rattled by it. Because we were living in a motorhome and we had such control over our expenses, and there's a thing called work camping. There's a newsletter that goes out, workcamping.com website, and you can find jobs at campgrounds. And so we looked into that, and we ended up getting a job at the Crazy Horse Monument in South Dakota, $8.50 an hour for the two of us each. And our burn rate dropped considerably because there was no more diesel to buy for the motorhome, and the RV site was free. And they fed us occasionally at the cafeteria at the memorial. So we really were able to cut back on our burn rate. And slowly but surely, by the end of 09, we were back up over 1 million, 1.1 or 1.2 by then. I wasn't terrified of it all.
So what about Beverly? How did you feel, Beverly?
Yeah, she knows all the finances, so she knows how bad it got financially.
It happily got a job. I also never worried.
We could go live out in the desert for free.
Right.
And you guys were in your late 50s. So JC, you were 57 at the time of retirement. And Beverly, were you close to that age?
Yeah.
She's 8 months younger than me.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's younger than you. So you both retired early because traditional age is 67. So you couldn't get to your retirement money. But JC, it sounds like the CDs that you had at Wells Fargo, that was safe and secure. That wasn't subject to the volatility of the stock market of 2008. Did that help?
And then we were earning pocket change from the jobs at $8.50 an hour we were putting in.
Yeah. Those laddered CDs was just a godsend, the way that had wound up being structured.
And that Wells Fargo advisor is the one that suggested, looking for someplace to put all this extra money I was making. He suggested the CDs, and so I had learned about it from him and went ahead and did it.
Yeah, it was one of those quirky things. I feel like it was a godsend for us, and unknown to how pivotal they would become after he started investing in it. It really saved our bacon, if you will.
One of the things that I think, other than selling the Apple stock, it sounds like selling your home really boosted your livable nest egg, and moving into the motorhome. That's where you got in part to the 1.5 million. Is that true?
The 1.5 million was calculated in December of '07, and we had sold the house by then. And I think I had quit buying individual stocks by then and had learned of index funds. So I put up a 3-column spreadsheet. Wells Fargo's doing this with my money. I'm doing this with my money. And I just started putting in Vanguard. And I was going to compare the 3 performances to decide which way I wanted to go with my money. And I did that for maybe a year and a half. And I didn't like the Wells Fargo's performance. And I failed at picking stocks. But Vanguard was doing pretty good. So I moved everything over to Vanguard.
And then you managed to have also a massive increase in home equity, if I'm not mistaken, in selling your house in California. Isn't that correct?
I bought it for $138.
Sold it for $738.
Yeah.
Wow.
So in many ways, you downsized just prior to the crash, increased your nest egg considerably, taking the harvested equity after paying for a $250,000 motorhome. And that too peaked your net worth. You had the protection of a fixed income CD ladder.
I think we netted $400,000 out of the house after we paid off the existing mortgage and second mortgage.
Okay, so that's part of how you got to your peak nest egg at the time. And then I'm amazed that for me, if I saw my portfolio go from 1.5 to 800,000, I'd have a heart attack. How come you guys didn't? I mean, you seem so resilient. I mean, yes, this work camping was part of it. You just sort of adjusted as things went along without really losing sleep. Tell our audience how they can weather these volatile storms, because you weathered one of the biggest ones.
I was confident in my ability to earn money. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I've always done it all my life.
Right.
I was from job to job in the Air Force, the Navy, electronics. I just always found a way to make it work. So when this happened, we'll just figure out a way to do it.
And some of it, now looking back on the whole situation, some of it you don't really recognize exactly how bad it really could be as you're going through it, because you're always covering yourself. I don't know how to describe it. I think the confidence in knowing we both could get a job anytime we wanted to.
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore, but back then.
So that's a great point, and that leads me to my next question, JC. You discovered the FIRE community, and we'll talk about how you discovered that, but it does hit the point home that people retiring earlier, as you guys did, you were in your late 50s, that you have human capital. And you both said you knew you could always make more money. Maybe not going back to the 9 to 5, but you knew you had the human capital to make money. Not so much today. You're in your 70s. So how did you come across the FIRE movement and you said, yeah, that's what I did?
I started listening to financial podcasts. Paula Pant was one of my early ones. And Paul Merriman's podcast, Choosify, got into that a little later after that, when the two of them, John and Brad, were together there.
What about the YNAB guy? Because you haven't brought YNAB up and how that's helped.
That was in 2013, though.
That's a good point. Jesse Measham founded somewhere in there YNAB, and you are a huge YNAB believer. Tell us what that is and how it helps you, this budgeting software.
I think the main differentiation of Jesse's program YNAB compared to others is the others tend to record what you did. Jesse focuses on planning what to do with the money you have next. What's coming up next I'm going to have to pay for. He's all forecasting where your money goes. And then you forecast the extra into your priorities. What do I want this money to do for me? What's the most important thing in my life? Is it a cruise? Is it a new car?
Or groceries?
Or is it sending your kids to college? This tool lets you plan how to spend your upcoming money and the money you have right now. That's what I love about it. I've got like 30 or 40 categories in my YNAB budget.
Oh, excellent. And for those that may not have heard of it, YNAB is You Need a Budget. And it sounds like the tool has worked great for you. So at the time that you retired, did you guys do any type of planning to say, this is how we're going to transition from working to now retiring? Let's start financially, and then let's talk a little bit about lifestyle.
I did a spreadsheet of what I was making and what I was spending and what I had left. and what I forecasted I would need to live on in the RV lifestyle. And I was spending between 65 and 70,000 a year and earning 136,000. So I had a lot of extra money, went into investments and stuff. And I bought a motorcycle. Anyway, so the bottom line of that forecast for our retirement life in the RV came to just shy of $30,000 a year. And so I divided 30,000 into the 1.5 million. And I said, oh, look how many years this will last us. Our first year, we spent 80,000. Yeah. But the portfolio was doing good initially.
Yeah, because we're in that bull market. So this is post 2008. So you got 2009 all the way to 2019 and 2020, where it was just up, up, up. You were living large, but your portfolio growth supported it.
I started out with 1.5. And at the end of 17 years, we had spent 2.2 million, and our portfolio was with 1.9 million. We just recently crossed back over into $2 million portfolio. But this past week, it's been down, so I haven't done an update on my spreadsheet. I like it sitting there saying 2 million.
You sort of backed into a safe withdrawal rate or a spend rate of an average over 2007 to 2024 of 6.879%. I mean, we talked about 4%. Some people talk about 3.25%. We now have Bill Bengen talking about 4.7%, and other friends of ours talking about 5 to 6 with a constructed portfolio that's maybe a risk parity style. You managed to have a really high spend rate. How'd you do that?
I think that's based on a 50-50 asset allocation. And we retired with an 80-20. And every 5 years, I'd lower it by 5 points to where today the target is 65-35. 65 equities, 35 non-equities. Their forecast of 4% is based on a much less risky portfolio. And my risky portfolio had paid off. That's why I could spend 6.8% safe withdrawal rate.
I mean, you had years where you spent 8%, 7%. I look at this, 9% right after the crash. You're giving me cold sweats here.
If you guys have not picked up on it yet, Bill is a little bit risk averse. Bill, what's your allocation? Are you 70-30 right now?
75-25.
Well, to share with you how risk adverse we are not, our second date, I took her skydiving.
Oh my God.
Awesome.
I got over 500 jumps and she's got over 220.
That many jumps? I've done one. That was enough.
You guys are risk takers, and you did it. So much of riding the bike and doing the RV traveling and all of that. I'm just curious because I feel like you were fired before it was cool and before it was an acronym. Yeah, so you're leaving the job early. Did people at your job think you were crazy?
No. Boy, they threw me a great retirement party. This must have been 100 people at it. It was wonderful. And my wife and my boss organized it.
Oh, wow.
But that job that I had that I didn't like and I wanted to go back to being a tech, they asked me if you knew anybody. And I said, yeah, my last boss at my last job. So I called her up. I said, hey, Debbie, what are you doing? She said, not much. I said, how would you like to come work at Apple? So she came in for an interview. They loved her. They hired her. And she became my boss for the rest of the time I was at Apple. And she kept raising my pay. I was making from 90 to 136,000 was all thanks to her.
That's right. So go find your boss, hire them, and then ask her for the raises because she's your friend. And it'll work out really well. That's one way to increase your income.
The lesson in that is you be kind to people, be willing to help others, and it just all come full circle. So obviously you benefited from that. Now, as you guys are getting older, you introduced another stream of income, that's Social Security. Can you tell us about how you made your decision on Social Security for the both of you?
Would you guess it? The spreadsheet?
Now we have all these fancy Social Security calculators. Mike Piper has done one that is very good at helping you predict, especially in a married couple, when should I take mine? When should you take yours? But the way you did it, which I found fascinating, was you gave yourself 6 options, and you did not wait until you were 70 or whoever the higher income earner was till 70. You figured out that, okay, based on age 85, if I do one of these options, this is how much I will have withdrawn from my Social Security at that point. You looked at the end result of, okay, I will have taken over $1 million with this option. I'll have taken only $900,000 with this option. And you decided in a very avant-garde way. Tell us about that. That was fascinating.
Yeah, I made a column of what if we retired at 62 or 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, and all the way out to 70. I made all those columns and how much she would get and I would get, added them together. And then I forecasted how much that would come to over the period of time until we reached 85, which I figure is a good target for me. Both my parents died before they got to 85. So that's the target I used, and I multiplied that times the age I was at the different possible filing dates. But I learned that filing early, there's some negatives to that besides the reduced amount. And it's about restarting it or starting over or delaying, all kinds of reasons. It was smarter to wait until full retirement age, which for us was 66 back then. So that's when I decided to pull the trigger. 66.8 for me, because I waited for her to get to be 66 so we could walk down to the office together and file, and she could file for spousal off of mine. But the point I was leading up to.
You wound up filing against.
Why it didn't go to 70 is because those 4 years in between, all that money that I was getting from Social Security, I would not have to take out of my portfolio. It could stay and grow. And I was making on average over the years 10% on my portfolio. So I figured it was smarter to skip that 4 years of 8% growth and leave the money in the portfolio instead and make 10% on it. So that was a factor. None of this was emotional for me, though. It was all mathematical.
And then your withdrawal rate was interesting because people forget about the powerful lever of Social Security as a late starter. And you definitely leveraged this because your withdrawal rate on your portfolio after you took both of your Social Securities dropped to 2%, right?
One time. It's popped back up because we've done projects. We bought the house in Mexico for cash. I borrowed 60 grand from my sister, and another 40 grand she gave me because she wanted to buy one of the bedrooms. And then we had a fight about how you properly cross the street. And then she wanted Bev on her side, and she'd been picking on me all day long. That's what she does. She's my younger sister. And so Bev sided with me, and that blew her top. So she ran upstairs, gathered all her stuff out of her bedroom, and demanded her money back. And so I gave her the $40,000 she gave me for the bedroom, but the 60 was a loan, and we had an agreement. And so I stuck with it. And that was to give her back 10 grand a year for 6 years, interest free, until I paid her off, which I did a few years back. But we're since gone on cruises together, and we've RV'd together since then. We patched everything up.
Oh, you're one of the few people I know where lending and borrowing money from family worked out. So kudos that you're still talking.
I borrowed from my brother-in-law to get out of credit card debt, and I borrowed from my sister so that I didn't have to take out so much money that I was going to have to pay taxes on it. I had enough cash that I didn't have to pay taxes on the $100,000, and the rest of it was a $180,000 purchase I got from my sister. And then I had to scrape another 40 to buy her out.
So you're a guy with some strong opinions. So we had this big law that just passed on the 4th of July, or it was signed into law on the 4th of July. So for seniors like yourself, they have that new deduction.
Temporary. It's temporary.
So it's temporary. So each of you will get an additional $6,000 on top of the regular senior deduction. Is that going to help you out a little bit? And do you follow stuff like that anymore?
Oh, God. Do I follow that stuff? I'm going to try to stay away from the political aspect of this because I don't want to piss off half your viewers. I'm cognizant of what's going on there, and I haven't seen the specific details about it. I know it's temporary, but I don't know if it's a tax credit or a tax deduction. And there's a difference. If I don't owe that much money, do they give me the difference? Oh, nothing in taxes. Is that how it works?
Yeah, it works very similar to the standard deduction. So you get your normal standard deduction, and you do not have to itemize to get it. It's $6,000 per person over the age of 65. So it has nothing to do really with Social Security. It's dependent on age. It's got income limits. I think it starts to phase out at, I want to say...
I saw 150 mentioned.
I think you're right. It's about 150. But just to be talking to you, I know that you're both over 65, and you could potentially get this additional deduction, which will help your numbers look better. It does lead me to another question. As you kind of enter some of these later years, what does your estate planning and legacy look like? Kids, grandkids, charity?
We have our wills in place, and I have 3 grandchildren and 2 daughters. And so I think we're giving it to the daughters, aren't we?
No,
Not
Logan's.
the grandkids?
Logan's included.
No.
Oh, the girls.
The older.
Oh, yeah.
kids.
That's what we
I
decided
think we're giving
to do.
$250,000 to each
Daughter.
and then they can do with it as they please.
Right.
But I'm not going to give them any more than that, I don't think. They're doing great. They're out of debt. They have mortgages, but they have retirement plans they're putting money into. They're doing well, both of them. So I don't see the need to rescue them, but a nice little $250,000 didn't hurt. But we plan on spending it. We still got cruises ahead of us, you know.
Okay, JC, you are a numbers guy. You are a spreadsheet guy. You communicate with your wife, Beverly, about everything, letting her know where you are, but you're the manager. You're doing these withdrawals. And it's not necessarily simple. For you, it's simple, but what about her? What happens if you pass first and she has to take over the portfolio? What kind of things have you done for that?
Well, this is mainly a cautionary tale. I started thinking about what happens if I go before her. How's she going to take over what I do with our money? And the RMD situation seemed to be ideal. They figure out how much you have, how much that divides up over the year to meet your obligation for required minimum draw, and they send you a check. So I wanted to use that strategy with the rest of our portfolio. However, a couple months before I started thinking about this, we were invited by Vanguard to convert our index funds into ETFs. Resisted this for years, but it seems like it's going to be okay, and it's at 1 basis points cheaper in the expense ratio. So I did it to my portfolio, my brokerage account. And then I started thinking, how could she get money? So I called them up and I asked about, can we automate, like the RMD, a certain amount to come out of the portfolio every month and go into her checking account? So all she has to deal with is her checking account. Well, once you convert to ETFs, they can't do that. They don't have the procedures, the mechanisms, the plan in place to automate from ETFs. Had I left it in index funds, they'd have been glad to do that for me. So if you're thinking about leaving an easy method for your wife to live with after you've gone, stick with the index funds, at least for now. And maybe down the road, Vanguard might come up with a procedure where they can automate sending a check every month out of the ETFs. But right now, they won't do it.
That's interesting. Beverly, how do you feel about this? Not that we want either of you to die, but this is something we have to plan for. And my wife doesn't, I inform her, but she doesn't really know the management details.
Right.
And our plan is really to probably at that point establish a relationship with a financial advisor so they can take over creating the paycheck for her. What about you?
Yeah, I guess I have a little bit of concern, but I was thinking in my mind, okay, the portfolio is big enough. I know how much I need to take. I could do the step about getting myself the money into my checking account, that part. It's all the other stuff of managing the decisions to make depending on what's happening with the market, or do I need to move something? It's all that stuff that I am not comfortable about. And as far as our spreadsheet thing, it is a good tool. I know how to use it, and we'll probably continue to use our own little personal spreadsheet thing.
You mean YNAB?
I mean YNAB, yeah. So long term, I still have a concern, and the concern of what happens if my brain decides to really, really, really go wacko. We have to get someone as a backup.
My daughter has agreed to, my youngest daughter has agreed to be the executive of our estate.
Right.
So I might lean on her to be the executor of it when it's just Bev.
That's what I'm hoping.
She's a sharp cookie.
Because we don't think about cognitive decline. You've had your head injuries, and it isn't just about dying first. It's about, say, JC's mind leave this world before, then you have to flip and take care of him. So there's many aspects involved in pre-morbid estate planning that people don't necessarily think of. And that's where potentially assessing your finances with a financial advisor who's got these blind spots or nuances that you may not have thought of in the front of their mind. So we definitely are proponents of DIY, but the majority of the population does engage with a financial advisor. And we've had episodes about how to find the right financial advisor for, say, an isolated project to help you create or recreate your plan. So don't think you can necessarily do this alone for the rest of your life.
No, and I agree with that. If you have a relationship built up with maybe your tax guy. I thought about that. I can lean on him a little bit if I have a question or something.
Unfortunately, the smart tax guy passed away some years back, and my sister hired a young kid, and she's bringing him up to speed in the tax angle of things. But right now, I think I know more than he does.
So you guys are not only the original fire before fire existed, you guys are the original die with zero, where you're going to live your best retirement life and the legacy is planned in, but it's not going to be everything because you want to spend it on your life. Is that correct?
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
What's interesting too with regards to this is you mentioned somewhere, and circling back to the tax picture, you had several years where you paid zero tax.
We kept our withdrawals from our portfolio as long-term capital gains. And as long as you drew less than, after the standard deduction, I think it was like 65,000, 75,000, something like that, was your reported income, then your long-term capital gains was zero. And so we lived off our portfolio, pulled money out of there, and paid no taxes on it for 10 years.
So you're doing a little tax gain harvesting.
I did some of that too. I had room in there to do that too. I sold Apple and bought it back at a higher price to lower my cost basis.
So are you leaving anything to the grandkids or just your two daughters?
Right now, we're leaving it to the parents. We could change our mind as the kids get older.
We have 529s for all the grandchildren.
There's about 65 grand in there now.
Yeah. And we'll just see how it goes. But yeah, we wanted to let the daughters figure out where it's going to be needed the most. And I'm assuming it's going to be the kids, depending. Yeah.
If they're anything like the parents, they won't need it.
That is really wonderful to hear. So do you have a certain account that you plan to use for inheriting that might be a better way to inherit than others? Like, for instance, your brokerage accounts. If they get the brokerage accounts, they'll get a step up in basis so they don't have to pay any taxes.
Right. That's probably the smarter way to go. Right now, we're living off our Social Security and RMD, and we're not taking any taxes out of any of our draws from the brokerage account, which is $4,000 to $5,000 a month on top of the Social Security and the RMD. So not paying any taxes on Social Security, not paying any taxes on the long-term capital gains we take out, but I am having them withhold 30% of my RMD and send it to the IRS every time they send me a check. The IRS is getting $350 a month, and I'm getting $1,070 out of my RMD. Because initially, when we got Social Security, I had to start paying quarterlies. I had to save up the money in my checking account, and my tax guy would take it out every quarter and send it to the IRS. I didn't like that. So now I'm having it taken out for me from my RMD check.
That's, again, it's something that we need to learn.
We're probably going to get money back.
Isn't that incredible how you manage taxes, where you can pay zero based on how you withdraw things? Because a tax bill is your biggest bill, and focusing on how you manage that will allow you to spend more money in retirement. Now, one thing that is important, too, that we're going to talk about in future episodes is how you construct your retirement portfolio different than you constructed your accumulation portfolio. Is there anything special you did or things that you changed in moving from accumulation to the retirement drawdown portfolio and how you constructed it?
I've worked on my asset allocation where, like I said, I lowered it 5 points about every 5 years. So that was part of it. I'm in a hot spot right now, though, for rebalancing because I have rebalanced in the tax sheltered accounts as much as I can. The brokerage account has the bulk of the equities. So now if I go to rebalance, I'm realizing gains I'm going to have to pay taxes on. So is it worth it rebalancing to get back to 73.27 because I've been afraid of paying taxes just to rebalance?
If you plan to have the brokerage account go to your daughters, would you then make the allocation a little bit different if you know that it's set up to be inherited by the younger generation?
No, I hadn't considered doing that. The 529 accounts are all 80-20 also.
The interesting thing that people talk about these days, Michael Kitces, for example, is that as we age and say move into our 80s, which generation are we investing for? Are we investing for ourselves at our 65-35 allocation, or is there a portion of our portfolio that we can invest for the future generation in a more aggressive way? Have you ever given thought to that? That's called a reverse glide path.
No, I'm not doing future planning for the next generation. I'm making sure that we have what we need and can do what we want. And whatever's left, they get a maximum of $250 apiece. The rest of it, we haven't figured out where it's going yet.
This is good because in the FIRE movement, people have a hard time learning to spend after they've accumulated. They're save, and they can't flip the switch. It seems like you guys have had no problem doing that at all, especially with these withdrawal rates of 6 to 9%. Why is it that there was no problem flipping the switch between being a saver and a spender?
I think my earlier days, I spent till the paycheck was gone. I wasn't concerned about it. When I'm in the military, I knew another paycheck would come. And when I was out of the military, jobs were being offered to me while I was working at other places. I was turning down jobs. So I never worried about earning a living. And I think I just reverted to that mindset when things were dependent upon my portfolio. I said, we'll figure it out. It'll be fine. Spending money, you brought up. We went on 3 cruises last year. We did a 2-week Mexican eclipse cruise for a 2-hour eclipse. Then we did an 8-day low-carb cruise, a keto cruise to the Bahamas. And then we did a 22-day cruise. It was actually a 10 and a 12 back-to-back to Iceland, Greenland, and Norway.
Shoot, I need to be hanging out with you guys.
This year, we're putting in artificial turf around our house for $17,000.
You're still in California, right?
No, we're in South Dakota.
We have not been living in California since
we moved.
Since we left in the motorhome. Have not been back.
Except for visits with family.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So is there any particular reason why you decided not to settle in California?
High taxes, too many people.
Just everything.
Yeah. And
one of the things we wanted to do when we bought the motorhome, driving, was where do we want to be our forever place, if you will.
And we visited all 50 states. We had to fly to Hawaii, but the rest of them we drove to.
At least once.
I just love it. Like, you guys are making me want to get to my 70s, or I want to be like you guys when I get to my 70s. But I do have a question around long-term care planning. Have you guys put any thought into that?
We don't think it's financially sound for us. We could be guessing wrong on that, but it's a lot of money up front, and they have all kinds of rules and regulations and things they won't pay for. It's like going with Medicare Advantage instead of old-fashioned Medicare. You just never know if they're going to really come through when you need it.
And we have, at least right now, enough money that
if one of us ends up in long-term care, we can pay for it.
We could take care of it on our own.
Our living in Mexico, we've realized how inexpensive it is down there for medical treatment and for elder care. So we are selling our house down there and moving 10 miles away to a community that offers elder care. Bev's in a position where she's having some physical issues, and she had a couple brain injuries that has affected her memory. So they have memory treatment down there, and they have physical therapy and acupuncture, massages, hot pools to sit in. Just sounds great. So we're selling our house in Mexico, and we're going to buy another one in this community 10 miles outside of town. And we're hoping they'll take care of us in our old age. We're going to get to the age where we're not going to like driving from Mexico to South Dakota every year, twice a year. So we realized we're going to have to slow down, and we may end up doing that in that retirement community in Mexico.
Yeah, I'm always curious to hear about those things. And when I ask the question, I purposely leave out the word insurance, because a long-term care planning situation doesn't have to include the insurance. But most people think immediately, it's insurance. No, it's like, what is your plan? And you guys have an amazing plan. Who wouldn't want to hang out in Mexico at this awesome place that you're talking about? So I'm always curious about that.
It's a UNESCO heritage site, and Travel and Leisure magazine just rated it as the #1 retirement place in the world, San Miguel de Allende.
Yeah, and then how does Medicare work with healthcare costs in Mexico?
It doesn't work.
You're self-funding. You medically arbitrage, but the costs are so low that you can self-fund that without needing insurance. Do you have travel insurance that helps you cover that?
For emergency air evacuation, if we get something really serious like a cancer or heart attack or something, they'll put us on a plane and fly us to wherever we want to go.
In the U.S.,
in the States, so we can get back on Medicare. And I'm continuing to pay the Medicare premiums until I die.
Yeah.
We need that Medicare backup because you never know what you're going to get disease-wise.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that you did your research with this. So that's why I wanted to hear what you had to say. Now, as we round this out, we looked at these letters that you've been writing to your nephew. To me, that's a part of your legacy. Like, what do you want your nephew and the younger generation that are in your life, your daughters, your grandkids, your nephew, like, what do you want to leave with them? Not the monetary part, but what lessons would you hope that they would have learned by either watching you or things that are important to you that you hope that will be instilled in them?
#1 is manage your money. Be aware of where everything's going and set your priorities. Set your spending to your priorities and what you want out of life. And #2 is whatever extra you can scrape together, put it in broad-based low cost, highly diversified index funds.
Do you have any advice for the next generation based on your experience?
Oh my.
Well, I'll share you one of her. She had like an $80,000 retirement plan, and she managed to get it into a self-directed kind of thing. And then she loaned it to her boss at a restaurant. He made one or two payments and then declared bankruptcy, and she lost all the money.
That was a big boo-boo.
Yeah.
I trusted wrong thing to do. And to make things even worse, I didn't know enough about taxes. So I had never paid taxes on.
She went years without filing.
Yeah.
When we got married,
I wasn't making any money. I didn't think I needed to, which brings me into my own little entrepreneurship. One of the things I did after the restaurant, which we didn't really talk about, is I made wedding cakes for years.
this is during our divorce,
Yeah.
during our separation of 12 years.
Anyway, I was not savvy on needing to pay taxes. And all the jobs I had, I didn't think I needed to pay taxes on them. They were, yeah. Anyway.
So brother-in-law is a tax guy. He got all her information together. We'd gone out to find out any lost accounts things. They solicit you once in a while to put in your information, and they'd hunt for lost accounts. Well, they found that account of hers where she lost that $80,000. So anyway, we gave all this information to him, and he came up with a $12,000 or $14,000 back tax obligation that we had to take care of. That was a decade ago. We got out of that.
We live and learn. And you guys went through a lot of adversities. Like, this was not a smooth road. You've been through multiple divorces. You've been married twice. Bev took you back the second time. You had a lot of debt. You guys have made your mistakes and things like that, but you still managed to retire early, live a great life, do all this traveling. So to our late starters, that's who we focus on. And your story has been extraordinary.
Get out of debt quickly. Don't get back into debt if you can avoid it, and invest wisely. And for me, wisely is low-cost index funds.
The number one rule is that no matter what you put on your credit card, you pay it every month.
I pay them all off twice a month.
Pays them off twice a month. And if you're buying a bigger purchase, you figure out how to take out of your savings to pay for it, not use credit card as your savings account.
This is great advice. I mean, as Jackie said, you've overcome adversity. You divorced and remarried because you found each other again. You lost money in personal loans. There were many things along the way because the path is not linear. It's very variable, and you've adapted. The one thing you've learned and can teach our audience is you've got to adapt to the changes in your plan. There's no plan that's going to survive 20 years. Every year you readjust according to the circumstances of your finances at that time. It's a moving target. And I think our audience has learned quite a bit from you about the realities of accumulation, decumulation, and retirement. You're living your best lives. You struggled, but you've enjoyed each other. You've done it together. And I'm just very impressed with this story, Jackie.
Keep track of everything. You won't know what you need to adjust.
And once your eyes open, you had all that debt, like it just looked like you just moved so fast like the wind. Thank you for opening up to us. Thank you for sharing all of your numbers. This was such a pleasure. So much fun to talk to both of you, Bev and JC.
These guys have taught me about the 6.879 withdrawal rate.
Right.
And the die with zero approach. Their portfolio construction allows for this. Their adaptability allows for this. I think JC should write a book about his story. Share the numbers. It doesn't have to be a fancy book. It can be a booklet, because people don't realize, and they follow all these dogmas in the FIRE movement, but there's only a personal plan. And your personal plan tells folks that, you know what? The 3.25% rule, it may be too conservative for me. The 4% rule is based on a conservative portfolio. I mean, we'll publish, if you allow us to, your spreadsheets and links to it, so that people can go over this and find detail and say, you know what? This is what I need to do with my money. This is how I can live my best life. I don't need to leave the world with the richest man or woman in the graveyard. I can use my hard work to live my best life into my 70s and 80s. You guys are vibrant examples of how to live a robust retirement. So thank you for being here with us today.
It's been fun.
Thank you both so much. Love listening to you and delighted to meet you face to face.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys next time on Catching Up to Fi.
All right. Adios.
Bye.
Bye.
So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. Our social media maven is Diana Falk, and our editor is Fritz Brizard. We love them, and they keep us going.
Yeah, Jackie, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community, and we hope you love us back. If you would like to support the show and our mission to help late starters, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to make a donation. The link is in the show notes and on the website.
Check out the show notes for resources mentioned in today's show. Also, head on over to our website at catchinguptofi.com and check out our vetted resources, partners, and affiliates for discounts and their services, because we love sharing great deals.
Please share the show with others and head on over to our Facebook community to help us grow. If you prefer video, head on over to YouTube and watch the show there. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to Fi. We would appreciate it if you could also leave us a 5-star review to help our message reach others.
And while we are financial educators that love to teach, remember that our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
So, Jackie, we'll see our audience next time on Catching Up to Fi. Cheers.